The stars were silent. The night of the alien world stretched wide, and the human explorer moved carefully through the glowing forest. He was far away from Earth, far away from safety. But his heart was full of curiosity. He wanted to see, to learn, to understand this strange place. His name was Daniel, a simple man, not a soldier, not a leader, only a researcher who loved the unknown. His job was to collect samples and record life. But tonight he had walked too far, deeper into the alien woods, where shadows moved like living things. Strange, glowing plants rose tall, their light floating like fireflies, and the air smelled of metal and smoke. The human stepped forward slowly, his boots pressing against soft ground, and suddenly he saw them, the aliens. They were tall, armored, and beautiful in a sharp and dangerous way, their eyes glowing like burning stones, their skin covered in patterns that looked alive. Daniel had seen pictures of them before, but this was his first time face to face. The aliens stood in a circle, speaking in a language that hummed like thunder. It felt heavy in the air, as if the sound itself could crush bones. Daniel froze, not knowing if he should stay hidden or step forward, but fate chose for him. A branch cracked under his foot. Every alien head turned. Silence filled the night. Daniel raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon. His heart raced, his mouth dry. He tried to smile, but his voice shook when he said, "I mean no harm." The tallest alien stepped closer, her armor shining under the strange moonlight. Her eyes were sharp and filled with power. She looked at him as if he were a thief, as if he had broken something sacred by standing here. Daniel wanted to explain, wanted to bow, but then his hand brushed against her arm. It was only a second, only a mistake. He was moving back, trying not to fall, but his skin touched her skin. The world stopped. Every alien gasped, their voices echoing like a storm. Some raised weapons, some shouted words Daniel did not understand. But one thing was clear. He had done something terrible. The woman he touched did not move. Her eyes locked on him, glowing brighter. Her hand reached for the blade at her side, but then she stopped, her voice calm, yet deadly. "He touched me," she said. Every alien around her bowed their heads, fear and respect in their faces. Daniel's heart pounded harder. He tried to explain, "It was an accident, I did not mean..." But the aliens did not care. Their laws were older than his planet, and accidents were not part of them. The circle closed around him, spears and glowing weapons pointed at his chest. The air felt heavy. The ground seemed to shake. Daniel felt like a rabbit surrounded by wolves. The leader spoke again, her voice carrying judgment. "By our law, the touch cannot be undone." She raised her hand toward the sky, and the others repeated her words in a chant. "The touch cannot be undone." Daniel's throat dried, his stomach twisted. He did not know what this meant. He only knew it was bad. The alien's eyes burned with something between anger and curiosity. Then another voice rose, deep and commanding, from the back of the crowd, an elder with silver marks across his skin. He stepped forward with slow power. "The human has broken the sacred rule," he said, "and by the ancient law he must face judgment." Daniel's knees weakened. He shook his head. "Wait, please, I don't even know your law, I didn't mean..." But his words were swallowed by the crowd. Their chant louder now. "Judgment, judgment, judgment." The tall alien woman, the one he had touched, looked at him without blinking, her eyes unreadable, her voice cold as ice. "Then by the bond of law, he belongs to me." Daniel's blood turned cold. He stared at her, confused, afraid. "Belongs? What do you mean?" he whispered. But no answer came, only silence and the sound of the chant fading like thunder rolling away. Torches flared, the circle tightened, and the human was dragged forward, his fate sealed by a mistake of a single touch. In that moment he understood. This was not just another mission. This was the beginning of something much bigger, something he could not escape. And somewhere deep in the silence of the alien night, the law had already written his future. The alien city rose like black stone towers against the red sky. Bridges of light connected the buildings, and strange ships floated above with a low hum. Daniel walked in chains through the streets, guarded by tall warriors on every side. Crowds gathered to see him, their eyes wide, some filled with hate, others filled with curiosity. Whispers moved through the air like smoke. The human touched without permission. The human broke the sacred law. Daniel kept his head low, his heart beating too fast. He wanted to scream that it was only an accident. He wanted to tell them he never meant harm, but every alien stare told him the same thing. Words would not save him here. At last, he was pushed into a great hall, the walls carved with glowing runes. The ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Alien guards lined the edges, their weapons sharp and ready. At the center sat the council. 7 figures in dark robes, their eyes glowing with different colors, each one heavy with authority. The elder with silver mark stood before them, his voice echoing. The human has touched without permission. The law is clear. Daniel's chains rattled as he stepped forward. Please listen. I did not know. I don't understand your rules. It was an accident. His voice cracked, his throat dry. The council leader, a woman with golden eyes, lifted her hand. Silence filled the hall. Her words were slow, sharp, and unshakable. There are no accidents in our world. Every touch has meaning. Every touch carries weight. To touch without consent is to claim a bond, and our law demands it must be honored. Daniel's head spun. A bond? A law? What does that mean? He thought. The golden-eyed leader continued. The one you touched has the right to claim you, or the right to destroy you. This is the law of our ancestors, the law written in blood, the law no one escapes. The crowd roared, their voices filling the hall. The law, the law, the law. Daniel turned, his eyes searching. And there she was, the tall alien woman from the forest. The warrior he had brushed against, her eyes burning with cold fire, her voice carried across the hall. I claim him. Gasps echoed. Some aliens whispered in shock, others nodded with grim approval. The law was fulfilled. Daniel's chest tightened. He shook his head. No, you don't understand. I don't belong here. I don't belong to anyone. But the guards pulled him back, his protests drowned by the voices of the hall. The golden-eyed leader raised her hand once more. The claim has been spoken. The bond is sealed from this day. Until the end of breath, the human belongs to her. Daniel struggled against his chains, anger mixing with fear. You can't do this. I never agreed. His voice echoed. But the council ignored him. The silver-marked elder leaned closer, his voice quiet but firm. It does not matter what you agreed, human. Law is law. It binds stronger than chains. You touched her, and now your lives are tied. Daniel's mind raced, his thoughts tangled. How can one mistake decide my whole future? How can one law trap me forever? The warrior woman stepped forward, her armor gleaming, her voice calm but sharp. He is mine now. And by the bond of touch, he will walk where I walk, fight where I fight, live as my other half, or die by my hand if he fails. The council nodded. The hall thundered with approval, but Daniel's heart sank deeper. He was led from the hall, the chants still ringing in his ears. The law cannot be broken. The law cannot be broken. Outside, the alien sky darkened. Storms of purple lightning rolled across the horizon. Daniel looked up, his breath unsteady. He felt the weight of the world pressing down, heavier than the chains on his wrists. He whispered to himself, "This isn't real. This can't be real." But every step reminded him it was. The warrior woman walked beside him now, silent, strong, unreadable. Daniel glanced at her, searching for mercy. Why did you claim me? Why not let them send me home? Her eyes shifted toward him, calm and cold. Because once touched, fate is sealed. You carry my mark now. If I had not claimed you, you would already be dead. Her words hit him like ice. Daniel stumbled. She caught his arm before he fell, and for a brief second, he felt the same strange energy from before. a heat that moved through his skin. He pulled away quickly. "I don't want this. I just want to leave," his voice almost a plea. The warrior looked at him with a strange flicker in her eyes. Not anger, not hate, but something harder to read. Want does not matter, human. Law decides, and the law has already spoken. The city lights glowed around them. The night deepened, and Daniel understood something terrible. He was not a visitor anymore, not a guest. He was part of this alien world now, bound by a law older than his planet. And somewhere deep inside, he feared this was only the beginning. The alien city slept under a blood-red sky, but inside the warrior's quarters, silence was heavy. Daniel sat chained to a tall stone chair, his mind spinning like a storm. He wanted to wake up from this nightmare, but every sound, every shadow reminded him it was real. Across the room, the alien woman sharpened her blade, her movement slow, precise, dangerous. Sparks flicked as steel kissed stone. Her eyes never looked at him, yet he felt her presence pressing against him like a weight. Daniel swallowed hard. "You don't have to do this, you don't need me. I'm nothing to you," his voice cracked in the empty chamber. At last she looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You are bound to me, human, not by choice, not by desire, but by law." Her voice was flat, but underneath it Daniel felt something hidden. Maybe anger, maybe duty, maybe both. He shook his head, his chains rattling. "Where I come from, law is not this. People choose, people decide. You can't just force two lives together." The warrior leaned forward, her face inches from his, her gaze like burning fire. "This is not your world here. Law is stronger than choice, stronger than blood, stronger than death." Daniel closed his eyes. Fighting the pressure in his chest, he wanted to scream, but his voice failed. Instead, he whispered, "Then what happens now?" The warrior stood tall, sliding the blade back into its sheath. "Now we begin the bonding trials. You will walk with me, train with me, fight beside me, survive beside me. If you fail, the law will kill you. If you succeed, you will remain as my bond." Daniel's stomach dropped, his body cold. "Trials? What kind of trials?" he asked. The warrior did not answer at once. Instead, she moved toward the wall. Touching a glowing panel, suddenly the floor shifted, opening into a wide training ground below. Glowing symbols lit the floor. Sharp weapons hung on the walls, and the air smelled of iron and smoke. She turned back to him, her voice calm but final. "Trials of unity, human, to see if you are worthy of the bond." The guards unchained him, pushing him down into the circle. Daniel stumbled, his knees weak. He looked around. The alien warriors watched from the edges, their faces cold. Some amused, some hungry for his failure. A deep drum began to pound, slow and heavy. The ground itself seemed to shake with each beat. Daniel's heart raced to match it. The first trial began. Two alien fighters stepped forward, taller than him, stronger, armed with long staffs of glowing metal. They circled him like predators. Daniel had no weapon, no armor, only his shaking hands. He looked at the warrior woman, desperate. "You're just going to let them kill me?" She crossed her arms, her voice sharp. "If you are to walk with me, you must stand first. Fight first, bleed first. Law does not protect the weak." The fighters lunged, their staffs whistling through the air. Daniel ducked, barely avoiding the strike. He stumbled back, his breath short, his chest burning. The crowd roared. He grabbed a fallen staff from the ground, clumsy in his hands, his palms sweaty. He raised it too late. The second fighter struck. The shock ran through his bones. He fell, gasping. The warrior woman's voice cut through the noise. "Stand, human, or die now." Something in her voice struck him. Sharp and merciless, Daniel forced himself up, his legs shaking, his body screaming. He swung the staff, not with skill but with desperate survival. The crowd gasped when his strike landed. The first alien stumbled, not much but enough. Daniel's eyes widened, his chest heaved, and for the first time, he felt a spark of strength inside him. The fight dragged on, sweat pouring, bruises spreading. But Daniel refused to stay down. Again and again he rose, again and again he fought. Clumsy but stubborn. Finally, the warriors stepped back, their leader raising a hand. "Enough!" His voice rang across the hall. Daniel collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath, his vision blurred. His body weak, but he was alive. The warrior woman walked to him, her shadow tall over his broken form. She reached down, offering her hand. Daniel stared, confused, then slowly took it. She pulled him up with strength that felt like iron and fire combined. Her eyes locked on his, and for the first time, her voice softened only slightly. You did not fall. That is something. Daniel wanted to hate her, wanted to pull away, but in that moment he felt something strange. Not comfort, not trust, but a spark of respect. The crowd cheered, the drums stopped. The trial was over, but more waited ahead that night. As Daniel lay on the cold floor, his body aching, he whispered to himself, I can't survive this. I'll never survive this. But deep inside, another voice whispered back, You already did once across the room. The warrior woman watched him in silence, her eyes unreadable, and though she said nothing, a thought passed through her mind. Perhaps this human is not as weak as I believed. The reluctant bond had begun, not of love, not of choice, but of survival, and the path ahead promised only more danger. The next dawn broke with fire in the alien sky. Storms of violet lightning rolled above the towers, the air heavy with the scent of iron and ash. Daniel rose slowly from the cold stone floor, every bone in his body aching from the fight. Across the room, the warrior woman stood ready, her armor polished, her blade at her side, her presence sharp as the storm outside. She looked at him only once before speaking. The first test is complete, but the bond is not proven. Today you face the trial of unity. Daniel's chest tightened, his breath shallow. Unity? What does that even mean? He asked, his voice weak, her eyes narrowed, glowing faintly. It means you and I must walk as one, survive as one. If you fail to match me, the bond breaks, and the bond breaker dies. Daniel's stomach turned, the weight of her words pressing against him. So I'm punished for not being you? He whispered half to himself, but she heard. No, she said coldly. You are punished for not trying. Guards entered, their heavy boots echoing on the stone. They unlocked Daniel's chains, their hands rough, their faces full of contempt, but no one dared to mock him aloud. Not while the warrior woman stood at his side. They led them both into the great arena, larger than the one before. The ground carved with glowing circles, the sky open above, the alien crowd already waiting, thousands of eyes staring, voices murmuring like a storm of bees at the center. The silver-marked elder lifted his staff. His voice thundered, Today begins the trial of unity. Two souls bound by law must face the path together. If one falls, both fall. If one betrays, both die. Let the law judge them, the crowd roared, their voices shaking the air. Unity, unity, unity. Daniel's heart pounded, sweat cold on his back. He looked at the warrior woman beside him, her expression unreadable, but her hand rested calmly on her weapon. She was ready. She was always ready. The ground shifted beneath their feet, stone plates opening, releasing smoke and heat. From the depths rose the first challenge. Beasts, creatures with armored hides and eyes like burning coals, their mouths full of jagged teeth, their claws sharp as knives. Daniel stepped back in horror. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. The warrior woman's voice cut through the chaos. Do not run, do not freeze, fight beside me. She drew her blade, the sound like thunder. The beasts lunged, the arena shook. Daniel grabbed a weapon thrown to him, a short spear. Heavy and strange in his hands, he nearly dropped it, but forced himself to hold tight. The first beast charged, its roar splitting the air. The warrior woman leapt forward, striking fast, her blade cutting deep. The creature screamed and fell, but another came larger, faster. Daniel raised his spear clumsily. His arms shaking, the beast slammed into him, knocking him back. His chest exploded with pain. He fell hard, breath gone. The warrior shouted, Stand, human! Her blade flashing as she cut another beast down. Daniel's vision blurred, but he forced himself up, his legs trembling. He swung the spear, missing at first, then striking the beast's side. Not enough to kill, but enough to push it back. The warrior glanced at him, her voice sharp but steady. Better, she said, before turning to face another enemy. For long minutes they fought side by side, beasts falling one after another, the crowd roaring louder with every kill. Daniel's body screamed with exhaustion, but something inside kept him moving. The sight of her fighting, the sound of her voice, the pressure of survival. It pushed him beyond himself. At last, the last beast collapsed, the arena floor covered in blood and smoke. Daniel dropped his spear, gasping, his chest rising and falling like a drum. But the trial was not over. The elder's voice rang out again. The beasts have tested your strength, now the storm will test your bond. The arena shifted again, walls rising, lightning crashing above. Rain fell in heavy sheets, the air charged with power. Glowing symbols appeared on the walls, shifting and moving like puzzles. The warrior woman looked at Daniel, her eyes sharp. This is a test of mind, not blade. We must solve it together, or the storm will tear us apart. Daniel stared at the glowing patterns, shapes twisting in strange ways. I don't understand this, he admitted. Panic rising, she moved closer, her hand brushing the symbols, her voice calm. Follow my lead, trust me. For the first time, Daniel nodded without arguing. All right. I'll try. They worked together, her hands steady. His clumsy but determined. She guided him with short, sharp words. Turn that, move here, stop. Now push, he listened, he obeyed. And slowly the pattern shifted into place. Lightning crashed closer. The ground shook, the crowd shouted, time was running out. But just as the storm reached its peak, the final symbol locked. The puzzle complete, the walls sank back, the storm faded, silence fell. Daniel collapsed to his knees, exhausted, drenched in rain. His heart racing, but alive, the warrior woman stood over him, her chest rising with steady breaths, her blade still at her side. She looked at him for a long moment, then spoke, softer than before. You trusted me, and you lived. Remember that? Daniel met her gaze, breathing hard, something shifting inside him. Not love, not yet, but respect. Fragile and uncertain, the elder raised his staff. His voice thundered once more. The bond holds. The law accepts this unity, the crowd cheered, their voices shaking the sky. Daniel's ears rang with the sound, but his mind whispered only one truth. This is not the end, this is only the beginning. And as the storm cleared far above the city, shadows moved, enemies watching, waiting, planning their strike. The trial of unity was complete, but the true test had not even begun. The city was alive with celebration. Lights burned across the towers, drums echoed through the streets, and voices chanted the old words. The bond holds, the bond holds. Daniel stood in the center of it, exhausted, bruised, but still breathing. The warrior woman beside him, her armor scarred but her posture unbroken. Together they had survived the trial of unity. And the people cheered as if they had already won a war. But Daniel felt no joy. His body trembled, his mind restless. He whispered to her, They look at me like I'm some kind of champion, but I'm not. I'm just a man who almost died. She did not answer right away. Her eyes scanning the crowd, sharp and cautious. At last she said, The law does not care what you think you are, it only cares what you prove, and today, you proved you can stand beside me. Daniel wanted to argue, but a small part of him knew she was right. Still, unease burned in his chest. Something about the night felt wrong, and then it happened. The sky split open with fire. A piercing scream echoed across the heavens. Alien ships, dark and jagged, descended from the storm clouds, their weapons glowing red. The ground shook as explosions tore through the outer walls of the city. The crowd's cheer turned into screams. Panic spread, people running in every direction. Soldiers raised their weapons. Alarms blared. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. What is happening? He shouted over the chaos. The warrior woman drew her blade, her eyes flashing with fury. The outsiders, invaders from the broken clans, they come to take what is ours. Her voice was sharp. Filled with rage, the enemy ships fired again. Towers crumbled, flames rose. The air filled with smoke and screams. Guards rushed to form lines, the elder shouted orders. But the attack was too sudden, too powerful. One of the ships landed hard in the arena, metal claws digging into the stone. From its belly poured soldiers, creatures like the aliens, but twisted, their armor black, their eyes burning with hate. Daniel stumbled back, fear gripping his chest. He had no weapon, no plan. He was just a human in the middle of war. But the warrior woman grabbed his arm, pulling him close, her voice cutting through the storm. Stay with me. Fight with me, or you will not live to see another dawn. Daniel's breath caught. He nodded without thinking. All right, I'll try. A weapon was thrown to him. A strange rifle glowing with blue light. Heavy in his hands, he fumbled with it, but the warrior's sharp voice guided him. Point, squeeze, do not think, only act, the enemy charged. Screams and steel filling the air. The warrior leapt forward, her blade flashing. Cutting through the first wave with deadly grace, Daniel stood behind her, shaking. Then pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked. Light burst, one enemy fell. His eyes widened in shock. I hit him! He gasped. The warrior's voice rang over the clash. Then do it again. And he did, clumsy, desperate, but each shot landed. Each shot keeping him alive, and with every enemy that fell. His fear shifted, not gone, but changing into something else. Determination. The battle raged, explosions tearing through stone, fire lighting the night. The elder fought with his staff, lightning flashing from its tip. Guards clashed with invaders, screams mixing with thunder. Daniel stayed close to her, watching her movements, matching them step by step, swing by swing. It was messy, it was chaos, but somehow together. They survived each wave, then came the break. The enemy leader stepped from the ship, tall, armored in black, his eyes burning like coals, his voice deep and cruel. You dare bind with an outsider? You dare call this human one of us? He will be the reason your city burns. The warrior woman raised her blade, her voice sharp as steel. This bond is not yours to break. The leader laughed, dark and heavy. Then both of you will die together. Daniel's knees shook, fear tightening his chest. But he stood beside her, weapon ready. I won't run, he whispered, almost surprising himself. Her eyes flicked to him. For the first time, a spark of pride in her gaze. Good, she said simply. The battle that followed was brutal. The leader struck with power that shook the ground, his weapon crackling with dark energy. The warrior met him blow for blow, sparks flying, stone breaking under their feet. Daniel fired again and again, his shot striking the leader's armor. Not enough to kill, but enough to weaken, enough to distract, enough to give her the opening she needed. With a final cry, her blade cut deep. The enemy leader fell, roaring, his blood burning like fire on the stone. The invaders hesitated, their courage broken. The city's defenders pushed back hard and slowly. The tide turned. The enemy ships lifted, retreating into the storm, leaving smoke, fire, and silence behind. Daniel dropped to his knees, chest heaving, weapon slipping from his hands. He looked around at the ruins, at the flames, at the bodies, his voice trembling. We survived. The warrior stood over him, her blade dripping, her face marked with dirt and blood. She nodded once, her voice softer than before. Yes, and you did not run, human. Maybe you are not so weak after all. Daniel looked up at her, exhausted, broken but alive, and for the first time he believed her. But deep in the shadows of the storm, another fleet waited, larger, darker, hungrier, and the true war had only begun. The city burned in silence, smoke rose into the alien sky, towers cracked and broken, the ground blackened by fire. Daniel sat on a broken stone, his body trembling, his hands still shaking from the weight of the rifle he no longer held. Around him, the survivors moved slowly, soldiers carrying the wounded, children crying in the arms of their families. The chants of celebration from hours ago now replaced with whispers of fear. The warrior woman stood tall among the ruins, her blade still in her hand. Her armor scorched, but her spirit unbroken. She looked across the destruction with eyes sharp and cold, yet something softer stirred beneath them. Daniel's throat was dry, his chest heavy. He finally asked the question that burned inside him. How many died because of me? Her head turned sharply, her eyes locking on his. Do not carry that weight, she said firmly. The invaders would have come no matter what. You are not the cause, but Daniel shook his head, his voice breaking. He said it. Their leader said I was the reason. Because of me, your people suffer. Because of me, your city burns. The warrior walked closer, her shadow falling across him, her voice low but steady. The enemy will say anything to break you. Do not let them. The law bound you to me. But you fought beside me. You bled beside me. That is what matters. Daniel looked up at her, pain in his eyes. And if I hadn't? If I had run? Her gaze hardened. Then you would already be dead, she said simply. But then after a pause, her tone softened. And perhaps I would be dead too. The word struck him deeper than any blade. Silence fell between them, heavy with truth. Hours later, they were summoned to the council. The great hall scarred by smoke but still standing. The 7 robed figures sat in silence as the silver-marked elder stepped forward, his voice rough. The law has been tested. The bond has been proven in trial and in battle. But now comes the choice. Daniel stiffened. Choice? He whispered. The golden-eyed leader raised her hand, her voice clear as fire. You may leave this world, return to your people, free of chains, but marked as dishonored, or you may stay. Accept the bond fully, become one with the one you touched, and live as part of our kind. The hall echoed with whispers, some voices angry, some curious, some waiting for him to fail. Daniel's breath caught. His chest tight, he looked around. The eyes of thousands pressed against him, but none heavier than hers. The warrior who claimed him, the one who fought beside him, the one who saved him more than once. He turned to her, desperate. What do you want me to do? Her face remained calm, but her eyes burned with something deeper. She did not look away. This is not my choice, human. It is yours. Daniel clenched his fists, frustration spilling. But if I leave, you'll be free. You won't be tied to me anymore. For the first time, her mask cracked, her voice quiet, almost fragile. And if you leave, I will remain bound to an empty bond. Law does not break because one walks away. Daniel's eyes widened, the truth cutting deep. So, either way you suffer, he whispered. She held his gaze, her jaw tight. I do not fear suffering, I fear dishonor. But what I will not say is this. She paused, her breath sharp. I do not wish for you to go. The words hung heavy in the air. Stronger than the law, stronger than the chance. Daniel's chest ached. His thoughts spinning. How can I choose? How can I carry this? The elder's voice boomed again. Speak now, human. Choose your path. Leave and be free of us. Or stay and become one of us. The hall fell silent. Every breath held, every eye burning into him. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest. He thought of Earth, of home, of safety. Then he thought of this world, broken, dangerous, but alive. Of her eyes when she said she did not want him to go. He took a slow step forward, his voice shaking but firm. I never asked for this, I never wanted this. But I will not turn my back on those who stood with me. I will not leave the one who claimed me to face this alone. Gasps filled the hall. Some voices cheered, others hissed, but the choice was spoken. The warrior woman's eyes softened. The faintest spark of relief breaking her mask. She stepped closer, standing at his side. Their shadows crossing. The golden-eyed leader lifted her hand, her voice ringing like a bell. Then it is done, the human has chosen. The bond is sealed. From this day forward he walks as one of us. The hall erupted. Voices chanting, some in praise, some in anger. Bond, bond, bond. Daniel's chest felt heavy, but strangely lighter at the same time. He glanced at her, whispering only for her to hear, I hope I didn't make a mistake. Her reply was calm, steady. The only mistake would have been walking away. And as the council's chants rose higher, outside the hall shadows gathered once more. The invaders had retreated but not defeated, and the storm of war was far from over. The choice was made, but the cost had yet to be paid. The city still bore scars of battle. Towers cracked, streets broken, smoke rising in thin trails. Yet tonight it shone with firelight. Not from war, but from ceremony. The people gathered in the great square, their voices rising in steady rhythm. Bond, bond, bond. Daniel stood at the center, his body still weak, his mind heavy, but his heart steady. Beside him stood the warrior woman, tall, unshaken, her armor gleaming under the glow of countless torches. Together they faced the council. Together they faced the future. The golden-eyed leader stepped forward, her voice strong and unyielding. By law and by choice, the bond is spoken, the bond is tested, and now the bond shall be sealed. The silver-marked elder lifted his staff, lightning curling around it, the ground beneath their feet glowing with ancient runes. Daniel felt the air thicken, heavy and alive, every breath trembling with unseen power. The warrior woman looked at him, her eyes locked onto his, no longer only sharp and cold, but carrying something new, respect and perhaps something even deeper. Though unnamed, do not falter now, human, she whispered. This is the final step, Daniel nodded, his chest tight, his voice low. I've come this far. I won't turn away. The crowd hushed. Silence spread like a wave, the elder's voice thundered. Step forward and bind as one, together. Daniel and the warrior woman stepped into the circle of glowing runes, their shadows stretching across the stone. The elder lowered his staff. The runes flared brighter, and a force like fire and wind wrapped around them both. Daniel gasped, the energy searing through his skin. His mind flooded with images, her memories, her battles, her pain, her victories, flashes of her childhood, her oath, her loneliness. And then he felt himself pulled deeper, not only into her, but into the bond itself. He saw their fight with the beasts, the storm puzzle, the invasion, all replaying, but now through her eyes, through her thoughts, through her feelings. She too felt his life, his memories of Earth, his lonely nights of study, his curiosity, his fear, his hidden courage for a moment. They were not two beings, but one, their breaths shared, their hearts beating in rhythm, their souls touching in a way words could never explain. The power burned, but it did not destroy. Instead it forged, like fire-shaping iron. Daniel staggered, nearly falling. But her hand caught his, strong and steady. Stand. Human, she whispered. Stand with me. He gripped her hand tight, drawing strength, forcing himself upright, his eyes burning with light. I'm here, he answered. The bond sealed with a flash, the runes exploding into brilliance. the air shaking, the crowd gasping. And then silence, pure, heavy silence. The elder lowered his staff, his voice deep. It is done, the bond is sealed. The law accepts them as one. The crowd erupted in cheers. Voices crashing like waves, drums pounding, horns echoing. Daniel stood, breathless, trembling, but alive, his hand still in hers. Their bond now more than law, more than survival. It was something neither could deny. The warrior woman looked at him, her voice soft, almost lost in the roar of the people. You are not my punishment, human. You are my miracle. Daniel's chest tightened. His throat dry, he had no answer. Only the weight of her words burning inside him. The ceremony ended with fire rising into the sky, lights dancing across the broken city, songs of old mixing with cheers of hope. For a moment, the people forgot their wounds, their fear, their losses, and celebrated something greater, unity. But in the shadows beyond the fire, not all eyes were filled with joy. Some burned with hate, some whispered of betrayal, some plotted revenge. That night, Daniel stood on a high tower, the city glowing below, the warrior at his side, silence stretching between them. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. I thought I lost everything when I came here, but now, I think I've found something I never knew I needed. She turned to him, her expression calm but her eyes soft. The bond does not erase the pain. It does not erase the danger, but it gives strength, and strength is what we will need. Daniel nodded, staring at the stars. Because they'll come back, won't they? The invaders, the broken clans. Her gaze followed his, sharp and steady. Yes, and when they do, we will stand together. He looked at her hand, then at the scars on his arms, and for the first time, he didn't feel like an outsider, he didn't feel alone. The bond was sealed, the choice was made, but the story of survival, of war, of love yet unspoken, that story was only beginning. Above them, the storm clouds shifted, hiding stars, whispering of battles yet to come. But for now, in this fragile moment, the human and the warrior stood side by side, bound not only by law but by something stronger. And deep inside both their hearts, a truth burned. Whatever the future held, they would face it as one.